British big cats, alien big cats, BBCs, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, you tell me's.
Hello, dig for bone.
I don't think anyone knows that I'm the one cut off your toes and put them in the drawer with the sock.
Hello, and welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, a place where science, skepticism, humor, and anthropology meet to discuss all things spooky, haunting, supernatural, and sometimes just the plain ridiculous. I'm your host, Cody Franks, and joining me as almost always is bounding blithely betwixt bog and barrow, bouncing boisterously in the backwoods of Britain, blending into the blackness,
Garth. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast. And joining me, as you have heard the voice before, but we've never actually had you as a legit guest, is...
It's me. I'm Carolyn, and I have been on here as a guest before.
You have. I know.
Yeah, I was here talking about coyotes and mange, aka
That's right.
chupacabras, which I now have permanently tattooed on my body. And if you want to see those pictures, you should join the Least Haunted Discord, because I posted them there.
There you
Yeah.
go. Well, welcome back. Clearly, we had you on over a year ago because I had already totally spaced on that. But yeah, I totally remember that episode. It was really good.
That was fun. Because I think what our polterbites for that episode, because since we were just talking about polterbites, is we were talking about The Simpsons and chupacabras being in Simpsons, and we were trying to figure out if it ever had appeared. And I think the only appearance was in like a comic book, if I'm remembering right.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Garth remembered it from The Simpsons, and like, dude, it never showed up on The Simpsons, and it was a comic book.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
Professor Frink made a chupacabra or something like that.
I think it was something like that. I don't remember either, yeah.
Well, this time we are again going to be talking about cryptids. That's why you're here again, is our kind of like, I guess, official, unofficial resident cryptozoologist for our community on Discord, at least.
Yeah, I'll take that title. I think I've earned it after being a wildlife biologist for almost 5 years. I think I'm going on 5 years now. So, and
that you were trapping the real world actual chupacabra, which is a coyote.
Yeah, I did. So actually, one of my coyotes that was collared was a coyote that had been treated for mange, that they were like, hey, we're releasing it, do you want to put a collar on it? And we said yes. And he was a weird one. That's all I will say about that
Chupacabra.
guy. He was a weird guy. Ended up looking like his fur grew back in really well, so which was great to see.
So today we have another true cryptozoological mystery, and I say true cryptozoological because it meets the original definition of cryptozoology that was put forward by Bernard Heuvelmans. We talked about that in our Cryptozoology 101 episode, and that is that to be a true cryptid, it has to be an animal that appears in a place you do not expect it to appear at all, and also that it is like a real animal, or potentially a real animal. So like, Mothman is not really a cryptid because it's a personage, right? I mean, now we kind of use that term now, but if you went by the original definition that he put it in his first book where he introduced the term, it wouldn't work.
Also, I don't know if Mothman counts if he is a, as I've seen on other places in the internet, referred to as an ultra-terrestrial.
What's an ultra-terrestrial?
We talked about that in the Mothman episode.
Did we?
It's that he's from an alternate dimension and has the ability to manipulate the, like be able to, like, jump in between dimensions.
Yeah, it's, whereas Heuvelmans would have been like, no, I'm talking like, an animal that we thought was extinct shows up somewhere, like the coelacanth, or the okapi class. He's like, no, we know that there's some kind of animal that we just haven't, like, identified yet, and then sure enough it was found.
Would just a new animal count as a cryptid? Like when they first discovered the platypus and we're like, what? Would that have been a cryptid, though? Because it's not like they were surprised, but they were surprised because they'd never seen anything like it before. but
So
Um,
potentially, I think you could also refer to cryptids as being animals that are like are coming back into a range that you don't normally expect them to be in.
okay.
So here in California, we had those wolves that were coming in from Oregon, where we like wolves had been removed from California forcibly, and
Right.
so no one had really expected them to actually naturally recolonize, and that's what they did over the last, what is it now, 5 years since they were confirmed to have been in California.
yeah,
It was like
they're up in like the
2000,
northeast
yeah,
corner.
2019, because I actually, cool story, the a biologist I was working for, it was some of her game cameras that she was monitoring were some of the first that showed one of the wolves and their pups in front of the camera, and the pups were practicing their howling, and it's
Oh,
like
nice.
Ah,
so cute, so cute.
Yeah, so in the case of the wolves, it would have been if somebody had seen them and then like told other people like, "Hey, I saw a wolf," and everybody's like, "That's crazy. There are no wolves here." And then later, there's like, "No, though, there's wolves here." Then yes, that is a cryptid completely.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would meet the traditional or like the original definition.
yeah. The word cryptozoology just means hidden animal or the study of hidden animals. So a hidden animal. Now it's become like a catch-all term where even like supposed aliens are, oh, that's a cryptid. It's like no. So this one, true, actual, real definition of cryptid case, and we are going to be talking about alien big cats. And I know I just said, I mean alien as in not from here.
I'm not from here! I have my own customs! Look at my crazy passport!
That kind of alien cats that show up in Great Britain. So they're also called BBCs or British big cats. So that's why this episode is called the ABCs of BBCs. So broadly speaking, it is that for several decades now, and even earlier, there's much earlier stories as well, but they're very sporadic and they get more common as you get closer to the present. Within the Isle of Great Britain. So that's the main island of the United Kingdom. So that's like Scotland, Wales, and England, that big mass of land. People have sighted cats, big cats. And we're going to have to get into defining what a big cat is because it's pretty complex. Basically, they're seeing cats of, you'd see at a zoo, leopards, jaguars, mountain lions, a few people seen lions and maybe a tiger. That kind of thing. Because there are none, actually, that should be there. Let's get that out of the way. Those should not be there.
Yeah, I think at most the only wild feline that is present in the British Isles is the Scottish wildcat, which is, I was double checking this, which is starting to go extinct,
Oh,
Yeah.
become functionally extinct in the wild due to feral cats and hybridization with feral cats.
oh,
So,
I watched a pretty recent documentary. It's probably within the last, 5, 6 years old, about the Scottish Highland cat. And during the course of filming the documentary, they did not catch a single one in any of their trail cameras, but they have some that are in captivity. So, all the footage that they were using was, captive wildcats
Oh.
in, simulated enclosures. They say that maybe less than 400, and they're only restricted to, 2 spots in the Highlands of Scotland.
wow.
yeah,
And they're about the size of a house cat. So if you want to see how big they are, it's not that big at all. They say about the same size as a regular tabby cat.
Well, it sounds like they're genetically close enough. Were you saying that they were breeding together?
yeah, they're
Okay.
hybridizing with domestic cats.
Uh-huh.
So it's resulting in them being functionally extinct in the wild versus so there's a lot of animals that we have in captivity. So those animals still exist, but they only exist in captivity, and there's no established breeding population outside of captivity. So there may be a handful of individuals who are existing out in the wild, but functionally they are not breeding in enough numbers to sustain an actual population in the wild.
Yeah. And we're going to get into in a little bit what it takes to have a sustainable breeding population of something. And also the axiom that an individual does not a population make. Keep that in mind. That's very important. Not just in biology, but also like in the field of archaeology, for example. I was working on a dig that part of the dig was known to have been part of an original Spanish mission. And specifically the area where they enslaved the indigenous people and kind of kept them as slaves. And so we were on the lookout for any human remains, because as soon as you find human remains in that context, that would probably kick in what is called NAGPRA, the Native American Grave Protection and Repatriation Act, which means we'd have to stop. And that's actually why they had us digging in the first place, because they were going to do some construction. And they're like, we have to make sure we don't hit anything. So I'm on this dig for over a month. And we are sifting and wet screening just bucket after bucket of material context from this site. And we're finding a lot of, we find beads, we found a lot of flint flakes, some ceramics, a lot of sheep bones, and then somebody found a human tooth.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, everyone's like, stop, we have to stop, And then after like a few minutes, it was like, no, keep going. And then the person who found the tooth was kind of like put out, like, well, but don't we have to stop? And it's like, well, that one tooth came out of all these dozens of buckets that were all excavated in the exact same, quadrant, because you divide everything up into squares, and you dig down, and you go centimeter by centimeter. You remove layers of dirt and put that dirt into buckets, which get labeled, and then it gets screened out. So we found one tooth out of 24 buckets of the same material layer. There's no other human bones. So obviously we don't have a body there. We have somebody who lost a tooth and chucked it in the trash.
Yeah.
Basically, because that one tooth does not make a whole individual. So yeah, one individual, a single thing does not a population make.
Well, and of all of the parts of a body, that's the one that would be the least likely to be like, oh, that person must have died because we found that part. It's like, well, no, it's a tooth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it would have been different if it had been like a partial,
a
femur
finger.
or like part of like a jawbone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you had kept digging and it's like then you found like part of a jaw, then I think then you would be within the parameters to stop. But like just a tooth, and I was like, teeth fall out all the time.
If I remember correctly, I think it was a premolar. So that's like a tooth that probably would be likely at that time period to fall out, because you see a lot of tooth wear in that population from that time period, because they're using their mouths as a third hand for like working with leather and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Also, grinding food in a mano metate leaves a lot of there's a lot of like rock sediment that ends up in there that grinds down teeth as well. Anyway, the point was it wasn't a person. And so as we talk about these British big cats, we're actually going to talk about some cases where, yes, there was a cat found, but that does not mean there is a population of big cats. So let's see, I'm trying to think about where to start. Let's start 1978. In Bodmin Moor, which is in northeast Cornwall.
Are we going to be here for a while?
Oh, you mean should we take a backwards carousel?
Possibly. We haven't in a while. I don't know.
I don't have as many details. I was just going to give it a... Okay, well, fuck it.
All right. Hey, there's Rassie.
Hello.
Nice.
All right, Rassie.
You want to use the backwards carousel of time?
Rassie knows how to work the controls. Here we go, everybody.
I would hope he knows how to work the controls. He fixed it.
Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I got it.
All right, here we go. Enter coordinates, Rassie.
What was the date again?
We're going 1978.
1978.
Bodmin Moor.
All right.
Northeast Cornwall, England.
Here we go.
Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, 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 beep.
Oh boy, well, here we are. What a moor this is.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a windswept moor.
Yeah, I'm being swept right now. I can see.
And you can. The interesting thing about moorlands, it's this like idea that these spaces, as you can see around us, are just wide open grasslands with exposed rock and such. That was not always the case. Most of the moorland in England or in Britain was forest at one time and had been deforested by humans, like moving through, like, once they developed agriculture and animal husbandry on Great Britain. So like most of that was very deep, dark forest at one point, and now it's like, these crazy boggy marshlands.
Is that the case for this one? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was like, that's something that people don't realize, is that people have been on the British Isles a very long time.
Yes. Very long time.
Yeah.
So we're here in Bodmin Moor because this is one of the first places around this time that people start seeing a mysterious, large, black felid of some kind.
Felid.
Stalking the moor. And even some farmers are starting to say that they have livestock that are being killed. So there's sheep that are being killed and mutilated by some sort of unknown creature, which they then dub the Beast of Bodmin Moor. So the first sightings are around 1978. Then moving through the 80s, more sightings increase, and then it hits kind of a fever pitch by the early 1990s. And to the point where in 1995, the British government actually started an investigation of sending out biologists and government wildlife agents to sweep the moor to look for the beast. And what they found was nothing. They found nothing. There was nothing there. According to the Cryptozoology A to Z Encyclopedia, which is where I'd first read about this, they kind of like make this weak caveat where they're trying to justify that there could be something there, because they said, the study's findings, released on July 19th, concluded that there was no verifiable evidence of exotic felines loose in Britain, and that the mauled farm animals could have been attacked by common indigenous species. The report did concede, though, that, quote, the investigation could not prove that a big cat is not present. That's not how science really works, right? It's like you can't prove a negative.
Yeah. Like, no evidence was found, so it's just like, it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as we know. Maybe it's
But
still
then
there.
later, a few weeks after that study is released, a few boys find a jaguar skull in a local stream.
Oh.
And so they turn this skull over to scientists and are like, hey, look, here's proof that at least somewhat recently there was a big cat here. And then, they start investigating and examining this skull and find this thing is from a rug. It's from a jaguar skin rug.
Oh, jeez.
Jaguar or leopard, one of the two, skin rug. And they knew this because it's like cut at the base of the skull in such a way that would be how they'd cut them if you're doing a rug that has the head on it. Inside the brain case of the skull, there was an egg case from a specific species of cockroach that is only found in the tropics. Would not be in there. And there was evidence that the skull had been defleshed by a knife. So basically what happened is somebody went and got this animal skin rug, cut the head off of that, scraped the skin off, and then like just soaked it in water until it rotted a bit, and was like, oh look, here's the skull. So that's what happened with the Beast of Bodmin Moor. Now, in the same time span, but starting kind of like in the late 70s, 78, all the way through into the 90s and to the present time, that's when you start seeing these big cats. Now, there were mythological big cats in Great Britain going all the way back to the Middle Ages. There's a few old myths of, let's see, what's the name of the cat? Cath Palug. It's a medieval Welsh poem. And there's this called, actually the poem, and I can't pronounce Welsh, so...
I was going to ask you, can you please read the poem? I want to hear it.
I can tell you that the name of the poem is spelled P-A-G-W-R, and I know that in Welsh the W is pronounced like a U, but I don't know what the rest is pronounced.
I don't know Welsh well enough to like even fathom a guess at pronunciation.
Yeah. Fun Scrabble trick. You can use the letters CWM And that is a real word. It is pronounced coombe.
What?
And it means a valley. It's Welsh
But
for a valley.
But Cody, there's no vowel. Every word has to have a vowel in it.
Sometimes W, Garth. Sometimes W.
W
Yeah,
is
it-
sometimes a vowel. Wow.
Well, it's 2 U's, so doesn't that make
I thought
sense?
it was, well, they
Double
call
U.
it W,
Coombe.
but really it looks like a double V. I guess if you
Vowel.
write it in cursive.
Anyway, point is, this medieval Welsh poem mentions a giant black cat that is on a specific island off the coast, and then it has to. The hero of the poem goes and slays this giant cat. The cat's name means either Pelug's cat or the clawing cat, and it's described specifically as a big black cat. It was also birthed by a hog, apparently, so that's
Wow.
doesn't make sense that a pig would give birth to a giant black cat. Anyway, so there is this, like, there already was one myth that involved a giant black cat, because I keep bringing up this fact that it's black, because with the Beast of Bodmin Moor, it was a black cat. Mostly the big cats that are being spotted by people, they always say they're black. Majority of them are black. And we're going to get into how that doesn't make as much sense as well as we go forward. But I want to bring up the idea of this black mythical cat, because there's another black mythical cat that's in the British Isles. It is I think it's pronounced cat she. It's spelt cat Sith or Sith cat. They also say Sith cat, but I know that Sith is actually she, as in like banshee.
Oh.
Yeah, and so the cat she is a little bit larger than a domestic cat. It is black, completely black, but it has a white spot on its chest, like a white star on its chest. And in some tellings of the story, it is a spirit, kind of like any kind of imp-like spirit, and so it'll come in and steal your milk from your cows. In other stories, it is actually a witch who has transformed themselves into this cat-like figure, or it's the cat's familiar who is then sent to steal milk, bring it back to the witch, and regurgitate it up where it becomes witch's milk that they can use for spells, or it comes and it nurses on the witch, which is how she gets her witch's mark on her breast from a cat nursing on her. Either way, it's this black cat. So depending on where you go, you'll have a story that's slightly different, including this classic tale, a fun cat story. So this is now we're going to go
we're
into,
doing
like, this-
all of the segments. It's story time now. All right.
Story time.
Yes.
What time is it? Story time, story time.
The cat she. Okay, so the way this story is sometimes called King of the Cats. And I'm going to give you my own version of it, just kind of a brief retelling. So our story starts with a grave digger. And he is digging a grave in the churchyard at night. And he has a reputation for enjoying his alcohol. So he's been drinking a little too. And as he's digging, he peeks his head up because he hears some noise, and he looks, and through the darkness he can make out 9 cat she, these black cats, walking upright, but they are carrying amongst them a coffin with a gold crown on the top of it.
Whoa.
And they are doing a funeral procession where they apparently are counting out their steps. 1, 2, 3, meow, and they all meow, and then 1, 2, 3, meow, and they're getting closer. And he's like, well, this is weird and scary to me, and I can't escape because they are coming directly for this grave that I have just dug.
Yeah, he was doing his job as the grave digger. He was
Yeah.
digging them a grave.
He hides down in this open grave as he hears 1, 2, 3, meow,
As this adorable precision.
getting closer. Finally, the counting and the meowing stops, and he realizes that they are right above him, and he looks up, and they are staring down into him in the grave. At which point, one of the cats speaks and says, forgive me, I don't have it written down.
That's okay.
here.
We'll cut this part
No
out.
worries. I'm delighted by the images of
I'm
a
just
cat procession with a casket with a crown on it.
They're all
Absolutely delighted by it.
Looking down. I'm at the bottom of the grave looking up at these cats right in my mind's eye.
Yeah. Okay,
1, 2, 3,
Meow.
meow.
it is.
1,
Yeah.
2,
Meow.
3, meow.
I should summon my own cat and see if I can get her to do that.
Yeah, we did some Foley for the story.
Oh, my cat has a lot of opinions. She will gladly
Perfect.
provide Foley.
Okay, here we go. So, the cat at the head of the procession looks down to him and then says, in kind of a rough cat's voice, he says, "Tell Tim Toldrum that Tom Tildrum is dead." At which point, the cats all turn around and they start counting 1, 2, 3, meow, and they move off into the darkness. So it said, "Tell Tom Tildrum that Tim Toldrum is dead." So he climbs out and he runs home. He's like, this is crazy. He runs home where his wife is sitting next to the fire knitting, and their own house cat is sitting there right in front of the fire enjoying the warm fire. And he comes in and he's like, "You're never going to believe what happened." And he tells her the story, and she says, "You're drunk. You've been drinking. I've told you to not drink." She's getting ready to go off on him. At which point, their own cat stands up and looks at him and says, "Did you say that Tim Toldrum is dead?" And the guy goes, and then the cat goes, "That means I'm king of the cats." And then it climbs up the chimney and disappears and is never seen again. So apparently their cat is Tom Tildrum, and he was the one that was supposed to be told that Tim Toldrum is dead, thus making him king of the cats.
Okay.
That means that the cat procession, they knew that the gravedigger's cat was the one. So he did deliver the message accurately, even though he didn't know that was his cat.
Yes.
Okay.
This is an incredibly old story that has variations all over England.
Well, okay, now I'm
It
curious.
is even referenced by Shakespeare, because Shakespeare, they think that the idea that, is it Tybalt, who's Prince of Cats in Romeo and Juliet? He's the Prince of Cats as a reference to this story of the King of Cats as well.
Is this also why we refer to male cats as tomcats?
It might be.
Huh.
I don't know the full etymology of that.
I don't know
that's
either.
The story of the King of Cats. So you have this story about these black cats with white spots on them, and they're supposedly mythical. In 1984, a farmer in, I believe it was part of Scotland, noticed that some kind of animal was getting his smaller livestock, and so he set up a trap, and he captured a pretty good-sized black cat with a white spot on its chest. And this was in a place called Kellis, and so it's called the Kellis cat. And it turns out the Kellis cat, according to genetic examination, is a hybridization of the Scottish wildcat and the domestic cat. So as we were talking about, that they are functionally extinct because they are interbreeding.
Wow.
They're interbreeding, and apparently it produces this color variation because the most common color of the domestic cat globally is black.
Really? I would have
Which
thought.
is-
Black cats are bad luck? No, black cats are the most common color of domestic
I would have thought
cats.
tabby was the most common color.
Even within tabby, like there's the really, really dark, that almost verges on black, and the pattern's still there. Either way, it's just that, it's
interesting.
because the way the gene works, it doesn't work in the same way as an animal that's melanistic, which is like the opposite of albinism. It's a whole different factor, and it is a dominant gene. And so cats that are black, it's that and the tabby. Like they call the generalized.
Coat color in cats is like pretty interesting because some of it is X-linked. So in most calico cats are female, and depending on what their color pattern is, you can see what X chromosome is actually like functioning in that area, because one X chromosome will be associated with one color and the other X chromosome will be associated with the other. That being said, there are still male calicos. They're just not as common. Other reasons I'm surprised that black cats are the most common is like they were targeted for a very long time as being bad luck.
Yeah.
Which is surprising that it's actually managed to stay so like prominent in the species.
Yeah, it's according to what I was reading, because I wanted to get into this, and it was that it is like the dominant color expression. If you have just, I guess maybe it's like just feral cats that are out there breeding, you get that, and then you get that, Garth, like your cats, that very generalized tabby pattern.
Yeah.
That is, it's like,
I always
it just
assumed,
becomes like the default.
Yeah, I always assumed that was the default just because it's good camouflage, so survival of the fittest.
And that actually is kind of what the Scottish wildcats do look like. They do have a tabby coat.
If you look at most like small wildcats, they do have this kind of spotty, but also striped pattern, and what is believed to be the like common ancestor that domestic cats were selected from, a type of African like small wild cat. They have that color pattern of they have like banded legs and then they have spots on their body, and that is like that kind of patterning really helps them blend in when they're hunting.
Yeah, that's been most of my family's cats have been wild cats that we started to feed and then were our cats, and they all look like that. They're just tabbies. Except for my grandpa had a cat that was black with a white spot named Orwell. King of the cats, apparently.
I'm fairly certain that my husband's cat, when we started dating, I'm fairly certain Zarina had a little, like, she had a little bit of, like, a white on her chest, and then I think she had, like, a little bit of a bikini.
So, yeah, it's like the tuxedo cat. Maybe that's the more common than all black. But it is very interesting that you have this mythical cat in parts of Great Britain, and then suddenly it turns out, oh no, when you have the domestic cat and it hybridizes with our existing wild cat, that's kind of, the odds are it's going to come out looking like
that's
that.
So fascinating.
And they have seen this a few other times since, but the first time that it had been documented as a wild, unidentified cat is the Kellis cat. So, why did this really kick off, though, in the late 70s? And that's because of a specific event in 1976, which is the passing of the Dangerous Wild Animals Act in England. So in the late 60s and in the early 70s, shit got real wild in the exotic pet trade in the UK. There was no regulations, so people could just have any old thing they wanted.
Wow.
And, it was a time of excess. Like, you see, like, I'm thinking, like, Austin Powers, era. You got those, you got, like, the mods walking around, and you have that, like, I'm pretty sure I've seen an image of a lady walking in London, all fashionable, and she's walking a cheetah.
Actually, another movie I watched not that long ago, Anastasia. I think I watched it last weekend, too. In the scene where they're in Paris and they're shopping before the opera, there is a woman who is walking a cheetah on, like, a fancy, like, collar.
So, yeah, there was a time when people could just have whatever. And so, like, a lot of wealthy people would just have, crazy animals. And one of the really more popular ones were exotic cats. So in 1976, though, the government was like, hey, this is getting kind of out of hand because, well, for many reasons. One, public safety. People have, that's why it's called the Dangerous Animals Act. And then the environmental impact of these animals, if they got out and started breeding, maybe. And so they decided to regulate it. So they created a system where people had to get licensed to have these animals. And the process of getting licensed also required that you had to have adequate area and space for them. Since most of these people who had these animals were living in just like a mansion or, even apartments and flats, that wasn't going to happen. So the option was you were supposed to turn these animals over. The other thing is they had no list of how many of these animals were even out there because, again, unregulated. So we don't even know who had what animals in what parts of Great Britain. Anyway, when this happens, the choice was either turn them over or let's go release them and let them be wild because they're wild creatures.
So, unfortunately, this law actually encouraged people to release them into the wild, which is like the last thing that they wanted to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this still happens. I mean, even it just reminded me of like people who go and release goldfish into reservoirs and lakes.
Red-eared sliders in ponds and lakes. Hey, don't do that. There are a lot of like native like pond turtles to California. Don't. If you don't,
Yeah.
hey, if you don't want the lifespan of a turtle, don't
Get a
adopt a
turtle.
turtle. They live for
Yeah.
a very long time.
One explanation, and it kind of matches up with the timing, is that late 70s you start getting these reports of large cats. And the type of cat that's getting reported varies. You know, some people think that they are pumas and mountain lions. Some say jaguars or leopards. A few lions and maybe a tiger. Cheetahs as well. But one thing that's becomes more common, is that everybody keeps predominantly seeing them as black. And the thing is that there is no such species as a black panther. That is not a separate species.
Oh.
Yeah.
It is a jaguar or a leopard with melanism. Mm-hmm. And they have extra dark coats. And I looked up some numbers on that, too. That the chances of melanism in a panther or a leopard is about equal. They're two separate species, for the record. The jaguar is central and into South America, the Amazon. They used to be in the Southwest, and they're coming back.
Very occasionally they will be seen in the. Is it the Sonoran Desert? Is that the one that's in
Wow.
Arizona? Yeah, very occasionally that they get that far, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And then leopards are, your African
Or no, panthers.
spotted tree cats. Well, the term panther.
This is all new to me, so this is interesting.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No,
what
that's
is a-
actually, this is all stuff. Yeah. So, okay. So, panthers can be any of the cats in the genus Panther or Panthero. I think it's Panthero.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
jaguar and leopard
They're-
are in that same genus.
Oh, really?
Even though they're separated, they're the
What?
same. Yeah. Lions and tigers are also panther.
You are blowing my mind right now. This
snow
is crazy.
leopards apparently aren't, or they are. It's weird. The question on
Wow.
snow leopards.
It is truly a function of so a lot of it's more standardized now how species naming conventions go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But prior to, I think, I'm not sure specifically what year, you could name anything you wanted. You didn't have
Right.
to follow a specific convention. So things often,
Linnaeus is like, "Am I a joke to you?"
yeah, things often just got either lumped in because
Yeah,
it
this
all
looks
looked
like
the
this, so
same,
we'll call it this. Yeah.
or because somebody discovered it, they're like, I discovered it, I want my name on it.
Right.
That usually
yeah.
species name is usually more buck wild and lax, but typically your genus should be, which is the
Yeah.
name that comes first.
So it sounds like
should
a
be
panther is
uniform.
basically any big cat except for a snow leopard. Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. Okay. So the genus panther. Yes.
Okay, got it.
I think snow leopards are in that genus, but they actually are. They're not. That's no. The deal is, sorry. They are in panther, but they're not actually leopards. That's the deal. Snow leopards are actually
They're
more
not real
closely related to
leopards.
tigers
Got it.
than they are to other leopards.
Is
That's what it
a puma like the mountain lions around here? Are those technically
No.
panthers?
Nope.
Okay, got it.
Only
So-
a name because that's a colloquial name for them.
Right.
But they
Yeah.
are completely different family.
Okay.
Yes.
Their actual closest relatives. So you got the panthers, which are those other big cats that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Then you have the other group, which is lynxiforms. So you have the lynx or bobcat, as we
Bobcat,
call them
yeah.
here. So you have the Eurasian lynx and the Canadian lynx, and then bobcat, and there's a few others. Mountain lions, or I think its name is it Puma concolor? I think is the name.
Actually, let me double check, but it might.
And cheetahs.
Oh.
And then house cats are in that same group.
Okay, got it.
So your mountain lion is more closely related to your cat that you have in the house with you,
Uh-huh.
or to even a cheetah,
Oh, wow.
than it is to a lion or a tiger, any of those cats.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is Felis or Puma concolor is the
Yeah.
the
And
scientific
it holds
name.
the record.
Okay.
It holds the record for the most names of any mammal species. because it has one of the widest ranges of any, at least cat type felid. So you can find mountain lions anywhere from the Yukon in northern Canada all the way to the bottom of South America at Tierra del Fuego.
Yeah. And they have like as many different names. So in California, there are mountain lions, cougars, pumas.
Right.
But if you go to on the East Coast, there are panthers. So specifically, there is the subspecies of Florida panther.
Yeah.
That is it's just a mountain lion, but its
Yeah.
primary
called
home range
panthers,
is Florida.
but-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a colloquial term.
Got
It's
it.
because
They're not
again,
actually
that looked
panthers.
like, yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
hey, that looks like this
Got it.
other thing we're familiar with. We'll call it that.
Is it a distinction from New World to Old World, or do
No,
you have
so
panthers in both?
so the colloquial naming convention is just whatever somebody sees it and goes, "Hey, this looks like this thing," so that's why I'm going
Right.
to call it that. But
Moose and elk, for example.
yeah, moose and elk, like deer and antelope,
Right.
kind of it ranges. But in terms of just like the like true division in cats is big cats versus small cats, and that division is solely based off of whether or not they can roar and can they purr.
Ah.
So mountain lions, house cats, cheetahs don't roar, but they can purr.
Okay. Yes.
But tigers, lions, jaguars, and leopards all can roar, but they can't purr. And that's just the distinction.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad to me that a lion can't purr. I always assumed they could.
Well, they make like the really
They probably
common like
make a
happy
purr.
noise for
Yeah.
a lion is and tigers is like a chuffing noise, so it's like a
Oh
they
yeah,
kind of
like
just
a
like
horse.
puff. Yeah, they like puff their
Yeah.
like breath through, and it's like that's their happy noise.
But a mountain lion could purr just like a house cat.
Yeah. Also, one of my favorite facts is the only reason that domestic cats meow is for us.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
So, and one of my favorite realizations as I've like gotten older is my mom's cats that she found as kittens stray in her backyard meow in the same tone that she used to meow to them when they were kittens.
Aw.
So they learned how to meow from her.
That's so sweet.
So that's why they sound like her when they're screaming at her to feed them.
So leopard and jaguar are both actual true big cats, and that they can roar, and they are both members of the genus Panther. And they can have the melanistic trait at about a rate of 10%. So it's like a 25% chance of anyone being born can have melanism, and that works out to about 10% of the population, I think,
Yeah.
is what it...
I
yeah.
think albinism is usually like 1% to like 0.5%, just because, and if you think about it in terms of like an animal living in a jungle environment, it's
They're not
better to
gonna
be
last. Yeah.
as dark as possible versus bright white.
Yeah. Interesting to note, though, there has never been a documented case of a mountain lion or a cougar or whatever one of those names you want to use for it with melanism. So the idea of one of those being black has never been documented. However, they are frequently brought up in the case of the British big cats as one of the main possible culprits, yet they keep seeing them as being black, which could not be the case with a mountain lion. Just pointing that out.
Yeah, their colors range from like dark to like dark brown, light brown, and I think they can have some like grayish tones in their fur. But yeah, I even double checked that. It's there has been, even in captivity,
Yeah.
there's
never
been
seen.
no recorded case of a
There's been one case of maybe one with albinism from, I think, Brazil. Mm-hmm. That was like a long time ago and can't be verified. But
Yeah.
somebody reported seeing one. The albinism is probably more likely than you would see with the melanism. So leopards and jaguars, tigers and lions, they can all interbreed. They can hybridize.
Oh.
They cannot hybridize with mountain lions or lynxes.
And I'm just going to say the hybridization usually occurs in captivity.
Yeah.
I don't
'Cause
know.
in the wild, they would kill each other.
I don't know if it's ever actually been documented that it's occurred in the wild, but like you see ligers in like Joe Exotic.
Oh,
I'm sure that dude had a liger because he probably did, but that just
I
does
didn't
not
realize they could interbreed. I thought they were distinct enough species that they wouldn't produce offspring. Huh.
And just like
Yeah.
in the case of mules, I think they're sterile
Uh-huh.
as
I'm
well.
fairly certain that they are, but I will double check.
So I want to
Interesting.
bring that up, though, is that if you had a bunch of exotic big cats that are released into Britain in the 70s, the odds of them interbreeding with each other enough to maintain the numbers over the years is very low, because they're more likely to kill each other unless they're being bred in captivity. And even if they did reproduce, their offspring are not going to be reproductively viable, so it only goes one generation. But the sighting numbers of big cats in Britain just keep going up. It's becoming a thing that, like, or at least stays consistent year after year. People are reporting them. I'll give you some numbers here. This is from 2006, so it's outdated. But in 2006, I'm going to give you some regions of Great Britain and the number of cats that sightings that were reported. Devon, 676. Yorkshire, 127. Scotland, 125. Wales, 123. Gloucester, 104. Sussex, 103. Cornwall, 99. Kent, 92. Somerset, 91. And Leicestershire, 89. That's a lot of cat sightings.
Yeah.
For there to be, like, nothing there.
I wonder what's
So
going on.
what is going on?
I'm very confused. Yeah, so it isn't.
We're going to get into what is going on, and I'm going to give you some even more mind-boggling numbers. We're going to use some math to try and suss out the likelihood that there are a good number of big cats in England. But first,
We got to dig for some human teeth.
we're going to go look for some populations.
I'm gonna go look for scat. I'm gonna go look for
Okay.
scat.
We're all gonna look for different things, see what we can find.
Break.
Woo.
What was that laugh? I asked myself. I'm trying to recreate that as much as possible. I don't think I've ever laughed like that in my life. That was new. What is that? This is my new laugh for 2024. New year, new laugh.
We have a spanking new podcast for your ear holes called Doom Generation.
Available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Later, Doomers!
Do you like beer?
Of course you do.
Do you like good food?
You better believe it.
Then we have the show for you.
It's the Hoppy Trails Podcast.
I'm Nick.
I'm Travis, and on each episode of Hoppy Trails, we invite you to come along on our journey to explore craft beverages and the foods that accompany them.
Check out Hoppy Trails on hoppytrailspod.com or listen wherever you find your podcasts. Connect with us on Instagram at hoppytrailspod or reach out to hoppytrailspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Come travel the Hoppy Trails with us, and remember to always say yes to the hoppy ending.
Cheers.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so I did look it up. Ligers are actually not sterile. So I think they can produce viable offspring. I think it's probably a function of like so typically how we describe like animals that can't interbreed with each other. So it's either like biological, so that means that the combination of the sperm and egg just don't result in like viable offspring, or it's behavioral, so they don't display the right like characteristics or perform the right like behaviors that signal that I am a viable mate. So the same thing with like coyotes and dogs can interbreed and have many litters of pups as they like go on, so you can find like dog DNA in coyotes, which I actually did find.
Oh, wow.
One of my samples tested positive for having dog mitochondria. So that is all the DNA. So the mitochondrial DNA is what you get from your mom.
Mm-hmm.
But it had coyote-like chromosomes.
Wow.
So the markers for coyotes tested positive as being coyotes.
Because I had heard that coy dogs, as they call the hybrid, I thought they were a mule situation too.
No, I think it potentially is a bit of that. Like, so they could, depending on what they were raised with.
They just don't interact. Yeah,
they're just
don't
not
interact.
they're not
Yeah.
connected to each other.
Yeah.
In fact, coyotes are more likely to kill and eat a dog than.
Oh yeah, definitely true.
Yeah.
I mean, kill the dog just to not have it view it as competition in their environment.
My own sweet grandmother had her little dog snatched out of her hands by a coyote on her doorstep.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of
In
those
town,
stories.
by the way.
That's
This wasn't like.
I've heard a lot of those stories.
Well, welcome back. Those were some bones, weren't they?
Yeah.
Bones.
We've been back for a few minutes.
I found lots of scat, but there were bones in the scat.
Oh, that's
So-
funny because there was scat in my bones. So, I mean, my teeth
Oh.
that I found. Yeah, weird.
Weird. Okay.
Ew, poo teeth.
The hows and the whys, and I did say that I was going to get into some numbers. So, people who tell you that there are big cats in England want to push the idea that there is a breeding population of these animals present. There is, I'm going to warn you, this is getting into this is Britain's version of Bigfoot, to the extent that there are people who get very worked up about this. There are battle lines. There are threats that are made against people over their opinion about big cats, because within the group that believes in them is a cadre that believes that there is a government conspiracy that is actively covering up the existence of breeding populations of big cats in Great Britain because, as far as I can understand, they cover it up because they don't want the public to panic. Which just does not seem like...
People really love to cite government conspiracies. And I'm just going to say, as somebody who has worked for the government multiple times, no.
Right? Especially when wildlife are concerned.
Conspiracies are really hard to maintain.
Right.
And also, why?
Exactly, the
why would they do that?
Well, part of it is because they also want to deny the existence of them, so the government doesn't have to compensate farmers, apparently, for lost livestock. So that's where we're going to get into the first group of numbers, because then this led me down a rabbit hole where you guys are probably going to say, God damn, Cody, that's a lot of unnecessary work to do.
Oh, I would never
for
say
something
that.
like this. Well,
I wouldn't either.
Well, Carolyn, you're more probably like, well, that's the kind of stuff I do professionally, not in my spare time. So
I mean, I do kind of do it in my spare time when I think of a question that I'm just like, is that a thing? And then,
No, I know that
I pick at it, and then I find an answer, and I go, okay.
And you are aware of some of the points I'm going to make, because as I was going through this process, I was shooting these to you in private messages where I'm like, am I like crazy or out of line in some of this? So I am going to select the mountain lion as our case sample, our example for this, because I can use that animal as a known quantity and compare things to California and use that as kind of my hypothetical comparison for cases between Great Britain and California. Also, mountain lions are the even though they're not the big cat by definition, they're a large fucking cat. And that's the one that we're most probably familiar with as Californians. And it's also one of the animals that has been cited. So for all those reasons, we're just using mountain lions as our I wanted to kind of get that out of the way, because people probably would say to me, hey, Cody, what about, jaguars? And I'm like, I didn't fucking do the research for jaguars, but I did it for mountain lions. So here we go.
I looked into jaguars a little bit and also leopards just because I had these questions myself. And apt comparisons can be made, and the main point that I will make as a wildlife biologist is that most cats, the exclusion being lions, are solitary animals. So
Yeah.
you have to account for the habitat needs and home range needs for a solitary animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's do a quick size comparison. We'll start at the very big, and then we're going to narrow our scope in. The entire area of the United Kingdom, not just Great Britain, but the whole United Kingdom, is about 243,610 square kilometers. California's area is 403,882 square kilometers. So that means that the whole of the United Kingdom is about 1.7 times smaller than California.
Okay.
So, it's, I mean, they're not that far off, but they're also not that close, The populations, the United Kingdom has 64.5 million people, whereas California has 39.25 million. So that means it's a greater population density
in half the area, or
in half the area,
a little
pretty
less
much.
than that, yeah.
Okay. Now, I bring that up because we're going to use that as also we talk about the odds of seeing or encountering one of these animals. Now, how many mountain lions or cougars are there in California? According to the USDA Mountain Lion Foundation, the mountain lion population of California is estimated somewhere between 4,000 to 6,000 individuals.
Wow.
And if they were equally distributed around the state, which is not how it works, because each individual of those animals has a huge range. In some cases, it's like 100 square mile range, I think, for some mountain lions.
It varies. So habitat, like home range size, is dependent on like the basic necessities. So it's mating access. Do they have potential mates nearby? How is their food resources? If food is abundant, an animal does not have to have an incredibly large home range, but if they don't have enough food resources, then they're going to have to expand their home range to find more food. And then the other one being, and in particular for mountain lions like to avoid people, shockingly. They don't like coming into contact with people. So they do.
It's always by accident.
Oftentimes it is accidental. There are occasional like weirdos. So that was P22 was the mountain lion that hung around in Hollywood. You've ever heard P22 dropped? Yeah. Most big cats, just like I said, in terms of them wanting to be solitary, and I'm saying big cats referring into just size of large cats and not the specific like group. They want to avoid people because people mean like noise and danger and death. So avoiding people is good. Okay.
But for shits and giggles, let's just say we're going to assign every mountain lion in California its own home range based on, just equal distribution. That would equal out to, if we went for the high estimate that there's 6,000 of them, you would end up with one mountain lion for every 67 square kilometers. If we use the lower estimate, then it's one mountain lion for every 100 square kilometers. If there was only 4,000.
Well, and a kilometer is like 0.6 of a mile or something like that. So
yeah, about that.
Yeah,
Like
I always
6.7.
understood mountain lions to have a really big range. So does that mean that there's certain places where they're clustered even tighter than that?
Oh no, I'm just saying this is a hypothetical. I'm just trying to say if we had them equally distributed, because based on the size of the UK versus the size of, because we're going to find out.
I see what you're doing. I'm just surprised that would imply to me that the actual population density of mountain lions in California means there's a lot that are way closer to each other than I expected.
They are concentrated.
Yeah,
they are.
That's not surprising. Yeah,
they're actually. I think they break it down in California. I was just watching a thing about this where I think it's 6 or 7 groups that they consider them as populations that are isolated throughout California, whereas in the past they used to be able to freely roam.
Right.
And you'd have more genetic diversity, but because of all those highways that were built, that isolated them. So now they can't, because for example, let's say Highway 5 going over the Grapevine is like 20 lanes of traffic in some areas.
And they don't have wildlife tunnels necessarily.
Yeah, they're starting to.
Yeah,
so
they're starting to work
they're
on
going
that.
to try to. Yeah, they're going to try to start making certain areas where these populations can then link up with each other, so they can start, exchanging some genes. Because similar to their cousins, the cheetah, mountain lions are starting to genetically bottleneck.
Yes.
It's getting pretty dangerous. So yes, the answer to your question, Garth, is yes, they are concentrated in certain areas, but not necessarily by choice.
Right.
Okay, so we have that many mountain lions in California. How often do people get attacked by mountain lions? We said that you rarely, if ever, are going to run into them. But, just like how often would that happen?
I would guess it's pretty unusual. It does happen, but
So
not
according
often.
according to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, there have been 24 confirmed attacks on humans by mountain lions since 1986. That's as far back as I saw the listings. Out of those 24, only 4 of them were fatal.
Wow.
Most of them involved small children. 3 of them, I think, were actually in a wildlife park. So, that's not even really wild cougars in that case. I remember one in the 90s, 1994, because I was actually staying with my grandparents around the time it happened, who my maternal grandparents lived just outside of Auburn, California. And this woman was a jogger who was killed in Auburn, California.
Yep.
And what it seems to be is, in the cases when this happens, oftentimes young cougars are involved, where it's a mother cougar who's like, I got babies to feed, and you just wandered right into my area.
Yeah.
Because as a general rule also of mountain lions, this is like mountain wisdom that my grandpa used to tell me, is that keep an eye on the deer population. If it's a year where there's a lot of deer, you don't have to worry about mountain lions. He's like, for livestock purposes. He's like, because they prefer to eat deer. There's deer out there. That's what they're going to hunt. If it's a bad year, like a really dry drought year, and you notice that there's not a lot of deer around, that's when your house pets are probably going to start disappearing. I probably imagine it's probably the same for coyotes as well.
I think that is that would be like a fairly accurate statement. For coyotes, it would probably be like, well, depending on the area that you're living in, so it'd be like rabbit populations for coyotes. And also in terms of just general mountain lion safety, when you are walking on trails, do not walk under places where there are intensive overhangs, because a mountain lion is a sit and wait predator. It will pounce on you from above. That is the way they like to attack. And so always have your wits about you. And then also a study that was actually performed at UC Santa Cruz, they were trying to determine what factors can affect a mountain lion returning to a prey item. So they took a dead goat and they set it out, and so they had speakers that played. One was playing just normal frog noises, so normal nature noises, and they had a camera on it. The mountain lion came normally and fed from the goat. But when they had people just having a conversation, the mountain lion stayed away more often. So
they do want to stay away from people.
Yeah, so that was the advice I gave my friend when she was doing the PCT. She was like, how do I avoid potentially coming into contact with mountain lions? And I said, watch how you're walking on deer trails or trails in general. Watch, look up at your overhangs. And also just have, if you're by yourself, just be talking out loud. If you're with other people, just keep a conversation going, and you will reduce your risk of running into a mountain lion significantly.
Good advice.
There have been claims by certain individuals in England and Great Britain that they have been attacked by some of these cats. Not a single one of these claims has been verified, or hasn't been able to be explained by some other, just a domestic cat attacking somebody.
Yeah.
It's but I guess, when you get attacked by a cat, then in the retelling, it's all big. But let's look at prey animals. Like I said, when the deer population is higher, you don't have to worry so much about them preying on your livestock. So it made me think, well, what danger do mountain lions pose to livestock in California? And there are numbers for this. I was able to find these numbers, and this is where I get into the crunched hypotheticals. Okay. In 2014, there were 535,000 sheep in California. This is all from, again, USDA statistics. Of those, only 519, or 0.10%, were lost to predation by cougars. So they could verify a mountain lion only took, out of that 535,000, 519. We're like, well, that's a lot, 519, but that's still only 0.10 of the population. The population of sheep in Great Britain, as of 2023, was 31.8 million sheep.
Wow.
In the island of Great Britain. Now, if Great Britain had a similar population of mountain lions to California, then we can assume, crunching those numbers, if we say, like, I think I used the low estimate of only 4,000 cougars in California, and they're responsible for 519, or 0.10%. So what is 0.10% of 31.8 million? That would be 31,800 sheep that we could expect to have probably been predated by mountain lions.
That's a lot of
in
sheep.
Great Britain,
Yeah.
if they were just going for sheep. So,
is that what the numbers bear out? How many are
it does not.
Okay.
No way does that meet that. The reports of maybe of sheep being lost by supposedly a big cat. Some you see people claiming like maybe 100 sheep.
Okay.
You're like, oh, I lost 100 sheep, which also doesn't really that's like weird, because it's like if one farmer is losing 100 sheep,
yeah,
that's cat.
Yeah, that's
and all
weird.
the other farmers are losing none.
Yeah, no, that's other problems.
Yeah. Now, also, for that hypothetical fun little exercise I just did to work, we'd have to assume that there is a comparable population in Great Britain of mountain lions only.
That's what I was about to bring up. Yeah.
Not counting jaguars and other things, of only mountain lions. And that is just ridiculous. But then how many big cats would we need for a stable breeding population to exist? There's this and you might have some insight into this. I just found it thrown out. There's a generalization that can be made that they call the 50-500 rule.
Yeah.
Because the actual numbers are much more complex, but this gives you close enough. They're close enough you could estimate with this rule.
It also is an estimation that there are enough animals who are breeding who are maintaining the population, but you also have enough animals who are breeding that are not impacting genetic diversity. So when we're talking about genetic diversity and genetic bottlenecks, we're talking about the likelihood of interbreeding and the loss of specific alleles or the development of certain deleterious traits that could occur due to interbreeding. And so...
Yeah, it's if a disease is recessive, not really that much of a problem. But if it's the same people who just keep fucking breeding, it's going to
Exactly. So that is the concern when we're talking about genetic diversity in wildlife, is do we have enough unique individuals entering the population and breeding within the population that we are keeping genetic diversity high, and so we're keeping deleterious mutations low. So
the 5,500 estimate is that you have 50 successfully breeding individuals out of a population of 500. You need that ratio for it to be sustainable.
That is also so why they say successful breeding is I think it is how they deem success in breeding is that the young make it to adulthood to then have the potential to breed.
Yeah. Having children does not mean you won the game. It's when you have grandchildren that you've won.
Exactly. Sorry, parents.
Yeah, it's not until you're a grandparent your genes have not technically survived. So, based on that, we'd have to have a minimum of 500 mountain lions running around just to keep, that going. And so these numbers just do not hold out.
Also, what I will say, California is part of a continent.
Yeah.
So there is the potential for immigration and emigration, so animals leaving the population, but also entering it from other places. Britain is an isle. It's an island.
Yeah.
How are animals entering into this population to increase genetic diversity?
Yeah.
So, because theoretically, there could maybe be like a southern and like northern population, and maybe a central one. But if there's not enough like animals moving within those populations, and then also new animals coming into the island, that is why island ecosystems are so unique, is because just by happenstance, these animals arrived here and successfully kept breeding and developing this population.
Yeah.
That would have been that, like, just by chance they've successfully made it onto this island. And so if you look at island size, it also is a factor in how successful and unique populations can be. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And going off that, if we assume that there has to be a minimum of 500 number of mountain lions, then my earlier assessment of sheep is ridiculous. It would actually be 3,975 sheep a year. Because reduce it by a factor of 8, since there are 8 times less anyway.
Still doesn't add up, yeah.
And that's still an app because also you have deer. There's lots of deer that should be being eaten by these animals. And so what's the deer situation in Great Britain right now? And actually right now, it's out of control. The British government has said that there are so many deer that they need to reintroduce big predators to Great Britain.
We need some BBCs.
Either wolves or the Eurasian lynx, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
That's another one that might be another possible ABC. Those two in particular should probably be reintroduced. And this is being resisted by sheep farmers who are afraid of the potential damage to their livestock. But as we just showed, even in California with those numbers, the loss of those animals to livestock is negligible. Whereas the numbers of actually the loss of sheep that was attributed to other causes, like illness.
I mean, what about also like feral dogs too?
That's the predominant one is
loose
dogs.
Like not just feral dogs, but loose dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs who are not used to being around livestock can kill livestock. It's pretty common.
Yeah, no, I had at one point when I was a kid, we had a goat and a sheep that were both torn to shreds in one instance of a neighbor down the road had guard dogs with an electric fence collar, and the batteries went dead.
Yeah.
And so they roamed over to our yard and tore our animals apart. That person also happened to raise alpacas, and so they gave us a llama and an alpaca as compensation, as like, you know, blood money for our lost livestock.
Sorry, our dogs did this. Have a llama and alpaca.
Yeah. Okay, so the same stats where I got the numbers for how many mountain lions were taking out sheep in California in the year 2014. Coyotes actually were the biggest predator. So there you go, a canid, taking 118,000 sheep. And then the second runner-up was unknown malady, so some kind of illness. And then below that, they could just start going into specific things like digestive problems, like they ate something poisonous or whatever. I looked up the numbers for large livestock like cows as well, but that's not really important because there's never been a reported case in England of a cow going missing or any other livestock. It's just sheep, which just seems a little weird.
Yeah, that in and of itself is more suspicious. Like, yeah. I'm starting to think that these big British cats might not really exist. That's the conclusion I'm coming to.
There actually are confirmed cases, though. That's the thing. So here's where we can get to the fun twist.
Wait a minute.
One of the actual confirmed cases was a mountain lion, of all things. In 1980, it was found in the Highlands of Scotland, actually in the area of Inverness.
Wow.
Which is right next to Loch Ness. So for a while, there was another monster in Loch Ness, and it was a mountain lion. When they captured it, they were able to pretty much figure out right away that this was a pet. Somebody's pet that had been released. Because of its health condition, and it compared to its age. It was very well fed, and apparently it enjoyed human interaction. Like it would cuddle with people, and it liked to be tickled.
Yeah.
And so it ended up going to a local wildlife park and zoo until it died, and now they named it Felicity. And Felicity was taxidermied, and you can visit her at the Inverness Museum. So you'll find that there actually, though, are scattered cases.
There have been one-offs that were pets, I'm guessing, then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Almost every time. They didn't know exactly where Felicity came from, but it was safe to say that she was from captivity.
Yeah.
And almost every example they have going forward of people finding the odd big cat, they can trace its origin. And the most common one is actually, it's not a jaguar, it's not a leopard, it's the Eurasian lynx. Which is just across the channel over in Europe. They have them. They used to exist on Great Britain until sometime between the 8th and 12th centuries when they were finally driven to extinction. Right around the same time that I think wolves were driven to extinction too in Great Britain. So that's why it's the main contender is for reintroduction of some kind of predator species.
Sorry. Predator reintroduction is a very, very tenuous subject in terms of wildlife biology, because theoretically it's a good thing to like reintroduce animals back into places that they originally inhabited in.
Yeah, like wolves in Yellowstone.
But you could take that to the incredible extreme of it. So there are some people who think we should reintroduce lions to the United States because lions used to be in continental.
So the question is, how far back do you make the cutoff?
I think we should reintroduce grizzly bears to the Santa Cruz Mountains.
California?
Yeah.
So a really interesting book, if you want to like contemplate this whole like alien invasive species, is called Where Do Camels Belong?
Oh yeah.
And it's about this conversation of, if you are talking about invasive species, it's like, how do we deem something to be invasive and then deem it as being harmful?
Yeah. Also, by that same extent, at what point did they become native or naturalized? Because if you're looking at the Americas, the Isthmus of Panama connecting would make it so that some animals that we think of as being very South American should actually be up in North America and vice versa.
Yeah.
In the case of mountain lions, this is actually really fun. Remember we talked about, it might have even been the last time you were here, I talked about pronghorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was that episode.
Okay.
Potentially.
So pronghorns are the fastest land mammal in the Western Hemisphere. They are so fast because their primary predator was the cheetah.
Yeah, there was a version of a like North American cheetah.
Turns out cheetahs evolved in North America. They are from here. And then they went the opposite direction.
They went
and made it all
over
the way
Alaska the
into
other
Africa.
way.
Yeah, because there were also cheetah populations in the Middle East in antiquity.
Yeah.
So there was an Asiatic cheetah as well, but they came from here because them and mountain lions is like sibling species.
Wow.
They came from the same ancestor in the Americas. But here's the thing: is that like apparently mountain lions somehow made it down into South America, and they actually evolved in South America, and they couldn't last up in North America because they were outcompeted by Smilodon and the saber-toothed cats that were here.
Oh, yeah.
They had already disappeared in South America. And then the two continents reconnected again for good. And that's when, at that point, mountain lions were able to come into North America because by then the saber-toothed cats in North America had gone extinct. Which is just kind of a crazy thing to think about. Like, so yeah, when did they become like native? You know?
Yeah.
That's great. I like that
it's a really crunchy topic is the best way I can describe it, because you have so many different factors of like, if you introduce something, how does it then impact another species that you
Yeah.
don't expect? So really common examples are like cane toads in
Yeah.
being released in sugarcane fields to handle sugarcane grubs and then going, I don't want to eat that. I'll eat everything else.
Hey, look! Those frogs are eating all their crops!
Well, that's what happens when you introduce foreign species into an ecosystem that can't handle them.
And then nothing can eat the cane, and then nothing can eat the cane toad.
Yeah.
Same thing with mongooses in Hawaii, who were introduced to handle rodent populations that arrived on ships. The mongoose are going to go, why do I have to work so hard to catch a rat when I can just go catch a bird that has not had a predator species for its entire existence and doesn't... So, like, you get to very, like, nitpicky questions. And then once people are involved, and especially once finances are involved, and particularly in the United States, we have extreme... trying to figure out how best to describe this. We have this mentality of ranching and livestock ownership as being this incredibly important thing so that ranchers and people who own livestock can graze on U.S. Forest Service land for a lot cheaper. So they can move their animals around. But then that also causes them to come into conflict with predator species as well as herbivores who naturally live in these environments, and so there's a lot of like headbutting that occurs. So it's a huge gray area, and like I would never disparage anybody who is a rancher or who owns livestock, and that is the way they make money, because that's the way they make money. That's their livelihood. So I don't want to threaten their livelihood, but I also want to advocate for a species who does belong here. So it's a really like gray area.
Yeah. And that's, I think, getting to that whole conspiracy theory around the big cats in England is, people are it's kind of like cattle mutilations in the U.S. where it was like something was getting to these animals, but then you had economic interests where you had these farmers who were like, the government is out to get me.
It was coyotes.
Yeah.
It was coyotes.
And here's the thing also, going to these alien big cats, is if these animals are being killed by big cats, then they should be killed in the way that big cats would kill them.
Yeah.
You can look at them. There's, pathology on a dead animal that will tell you, well, for example, I watched this documentary where somebody tried to say they had evidence that a sheep had been killed in the forest of Dean, and here's the thing, and look how its stomach is like cleanly sliced all the way down, almost like by a butcher's knife, and its internal organs have all been removed. And then they found supposedly mountain lion shit right next to the carcass. That's not what mountain lions do. They are not gonna shit where they eat.
Don't shit when you eat my friend.
No, cats keep their areas super clean.
They have latrine sites.
Yeah, cats. That's why cats use a litter box,
Yeah.
is because cats are very cleanly animals and they don't like to contaminate their food potentially with like where they're eating. But also, a mountain lion kill, and specifically one that they've cached, will be hidden.
Yeah.
Mountain lions will hide their food sources. So if you find a food source that's like covered, like if you find like a goat or a deer that's like been buried, get away.
Yeah.
Get out of there. Because you're going to find something very horrible if you stick around there too long.
And if it was a leopard that was doing it, the animals would be up in trees, because that's what they carry them up in the trees. Which actually, apparently, in parts of leopard territory, they, like you were saying, watch the trees for mountain lions. It's half of the reason you watch the trees in leopard territory is so you don't get a leopard dropping down on you. But the other half is that people have been known to be crushed by falling deer carcasses that were left in trees.
Yeah, that one is true. Yeah,
wow.
people have like been injured by leopard kills that have fallen from trees on top of them.
And leopards
Yeah.
will drag ridiculously big animals up into these trees, including like baby rhinos and shit. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's how strong they are. So yeah, there should be more evidence. Is I guess what I'm trying to say is that if there really was this population of these cats, you should be seeing the signs. Even though mountain lions are incredibly rare. I mean, I've only seen one in my entire life, and that was just by chance. I've found kills and stuff, but
I've only ever seen one.
Me too.
Yeah.
I've seen one.
Yeah.
It was a young one running across the road on my way to Big Basin several years ago.
I saw one right between your house and my house, Garth.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was out collaring deer with putting radio collars on deer with some biologists, and we radio collar female deer primarily. And to get female deer to come in, you can make the call of a fawn in distress, because fawns will vocalize.
Eat me! Eat me!
Well, actually, it's Mom, come save me. And I actually witnessed this firsthand. One of my coworkers' dogs love to chase deer, which is a problem when you're working on a deer project.
Right.
So her dog is chasing a fawn down a hillside, and the fawn is screaming its head off. And then Mom comes up the other side of the hill and just takes off. And so dog, fawn, deer, we lose sight of them, and then we hear a yelp.
Oh my gosh.
And the dog comes slinking back.
Oh yeah, a deer will fuck you up.
I've been kicked by a deer.
Wow.
Lightly grazed, and it cut through my pants.
Yeah, their
and
hooves are
like
sharp.
Wow.
Yeah, they're super sharp. So like the fawn noise is, Mom, I am in distress. Please come save me.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get female deer to run in on that, but you can also call in other stuff. So we called in a black bear doing that,
Whoa.
which was also really hilarious because we see like 2 female deer run up a hillside, and then we also see a black bear, and we go, never mind. But so we were in a forested area. We were calling for a deer to come in. Nothing's happening. We're like looking around, and then the lead biologist, she's like really looking in this set of bushes, and then she kind of turns her head and goes to start the truck. And I followed her eye line, and I looked in there, and we saw a mountain lion saw its face as it emerged, and then it turned around and ran away as soon as it heard the car. And what was funny was we were all planning on like, okay, if nothing comes in, like this will be where we like stop and take a break and like use the bathroom. As soon as we saw that mountain lion, we were just like, you know what? Let's drive like 5 miles up the road just in case.
Good thinking.
So, yeah, it's really rare to see them, even in a state that has between 4,000 and 6,000 of them. More likely to hear them. I have heard them many times.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another thing is like nobody ever reports hearing these animals in Great Britain. It's always just by sight.
Especially if there is supposedly a population of them. So depending on the type of big cat, so this is me now returning to like big cats as the group of animals. Part of how big cats claim territory is they vocalize. Mm-hmm. And so that's why a roar is important, because the roar says, I'm here. This is my, usually gives like sex and age.
Mm-hmm. ASL.
Yeah. So a big male tiger will vocalize in an area, and so all the like juvenile tigers will go, oh crap, if we hang out in here long enough, he's gonna find us and he's gonna beat us up. But if it's a female tiger, she's gonna go, hello.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you would hear animals vocalizing, and especially like cats aren't quiet.
Right. Yeah.
By any means, they do vocalize a lot, so you would hear them.
Also, that if there was a lot of these, people have been going out and setting traps, and they're just not catching them. which, you think with all the biology skills, people like would just say, well, here's how they catch them in other places. Why can't we catch them here doing the exact same thing?
Yeah, trapping cats is definitely difficult, but doable. So there are like a couple different ways that you can do it. So you can set out like passive like box style cage traps and lure them in, or which is probably how they potentially caught like previous big cats that were seen, is that they treed them with dogs, like specially trained dogs, to tree them up, to get them up into trees, and then they can be given a tranquilizer dart and then brought down the tree.
Yeah.
So,
but that's not happening here in this case. Then you get to those people who. So there's one idea that gets floated out that actually they've always been there. Nobody has ever noticed them, and they've been there since the Ice Age, because that would have been the last time when you would have had lions, for example, in Great Britain, was before the English Channel flooded up. That's preposterous. Like, if we can't find them now, sometime in the last 10,000 years, people would have probably seen these big cats. It would be a well-known factor. And if you drove all the wolves extinct, why not the big cats? So that is just laughable. The other thing that's just as laughable is the idea that, going back to the cat she, these are supernatural beings. They're not even real.
Well, that's it. Yeah, they're invisible. Duh. Case closed.
Yeah.
That's it. They're blink cats. They're what is it in D&D? They're the oh no. They have a specific name. They're the Displacer beast. There we go. Husband coming in with that one. Nice. The displacer beasts, where they have like 6 legs and they have like weird tentacle tails, and you think they're in one place, but they're actually in another.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have actually heard that floated about in one of the documentaries. There was a woman who said that we have to accept that they occupy this realm where they're both physical, but also they're supernatural based, and that's just how they are.
They're ultra.
But here's what some real other most likely, and what is probably actually the majority of the cases. So we said that yes, occasionally there are actual exotic pets that have been released or escape. There was in 2001 a European lynx was captured in North London, like in the town. So that's one part of it. So there are an estimated 12 million domestic cats in Great Britain. A lot of the pictures that you will see, because there are pictures of these supposed big cats, are always blurry and always at a distance. And I think that they're just misidentifications, especially if they're all black. And we already established that black is one of the most common coat colors for a domestic cat. And, if a lot of the pictures that you see of them, there's nothing in there for scale. They might say, oh, well, it's next to a tree. Well, what you said is a tree. If we go out there and look there, is that actually a tree or is it a bush? We can't say. So, just like I said in How Ghosts Work, I'm not saying you didn't see something. You just didn't see what you thought you saw. So in these cases, it's most likely a domestic cat that is being misidentified, because also, if you're being told that there is a giant cat in the area and it's a secret thing that nobody's supposed to know about, or that is like, borderline magical, pretty soon every cat you see that you don't know is your cat, I don't know that guy. It's like, that's one of them big cats.
Mm-hmm. And also, if this idea that there are these, like, secretive big cats in the countryside, that have been there for, like, so long, that like, mythos will, like build in your head so that you...
Yeah.
I think the, like, what is it? It's the allegory is you hear hoof beats and you think zebras when you should think horses.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's in your brain it's like, well, it could be this big cat because people have seen them and they're supposedly here. You jump to that conclusion instead of going to one that might be a little more, I mean, it's less magical, it's less exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've
But it could
you've
just be a
primed
domestic
yourself
cat.
for it, or as Cody would say, "Hey,
Salted the mine."
They salted the mine." And look, there's a kitty. I see one now. I see one of the big cats now.
So there, some of the pictures, and you can go online and find a lot of these photos of the supposed big cats. There are some that are just blatant photoshops. There are a few where it's like the details are so clear, and it's like, that is just a Photoshop.
Just put a tiny banana for scale. Like, look how big this was.
Well, there's one that's just straight up a black jaguar in a field, but there's nothing else to give the context of where it was taken.
Right.
And if you like zoom in, like you can see where somebody traced out because the light's all wrong. It's like a composite shot.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of there's trail cameras that sometimes show something blurry running through the trees in night vision, chasing an animal. And then one I saw, they're like, oh, it's a mountain lion chasing a deer. Or is it a house cat chasing a rabbit? You know? Because also, remember, mountain lions, their characteristics do look very close to a domestic cat as far as like head shape, ear shape. And it is one of their closest relatives. Yeah.
I will say about, like, specifically about trail cameras, I've worked a lot with trail cameras, and if you cannot 100% like sign your name to something, you're not going to say that's on your camera.
Yeah.
You're not going to say you saw that. I have processed thousands. I think at this point we might be close to like hundreds of thousands of camera trap photos over like my like work professional like career. And if I'm going to say I saw something on camera, I'm going to double, triple check that I saw something on camera.
A blurry image is not enough.
A blurry image, if I can vaguely make out a shape of it, I could maybe identify it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get down to like incredible specifics. And also when you set up camera traps for like purposes, it's like you know where you set them, how you angled them.
Yeah.
You have an idea of like what's around the camera for scale.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can make those kinds of size estimates. Like, you know how high you put up your camera. You know how you angled it.
Yeah, it seems
that
you'd
kind
want to
of
have
stuff,
like a little
so.
measuring stick in the background or somewhere in camera view.
You can totally do that. You can put
That
something
makes
in the
sense.
background on like a tree
Totally.
and be like, okay, I put that. It is 4 feet up on this tree.
Measure out how
tree
high
trunk.
the camera is, and then you could triangulate if you wanted to know how big a thing was.
Yeah, you can say, okay, I put the camera 3 feet off the ground. I have a marker that is 12 feet away, and it is 4 feet up on a tree
There you
trunk.
go.
So you can kind of have all those size estimates that you can do, and it's like that is pretty common when you are doing long-term trapping, like camera trapping projects. You have stuff that you know, like what is in your environment, and be able to do size references.
So all this to say, if these cats were there, people would know.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One of the stories I saw was a guy that was like, I saw one that was roadkill, and I stopped and snapped a single picture of its crushed head on the side of the road, but I had somewhere to be, and then by the time I came back, it had already been removed, and there was a road crew there that was
It
like
was
working
removed
on it.
by
It was
the
the government
government.
cover-up. It's like, dude, if you saw that thing, why'd you only take a single photograph of a close-up of a crushed cat head on the side of the road, and not like the whole body, various angles, you know?
With size references. I'm going to keep going back to size references.
Well, he says that its head was on the white line of the side of the road, and that white line is a military specified blah, 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 however centimeters. And it's like, I don't buy that, really. And also, if the head has been run over and smooshed,
Could
it is
be
now,
any
like,
size.
spread out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, the evidence for the breeding population, put that to bed. Does it occasionally happen as a freak occurrence by an escaped animal? Yes.
Yes. That one I definitely believe.
Yeah, because it's been verified. It's happened. It has been documented. This has happened. But there is no breeding population of these cats for all the reasons we said. The color uniformity would not make sense. What species, the ranges, the numbers of animals that they would be killing and consuming, and just the likely, all of it. It's just, no.
I think you
however,
convinced me. Yes.
I haven't gotten into, and this is another topic. I'm not.
I was gonna say I gotta go. So
yeah.
Okay.
But I said this is separate from Australian alien big cats, in which case you have a whole continent to worry about, because that's another one that's a whole thing about people talking about those. And
oh no, am I gonna have to come back for that one and do the thylacine?
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
There are people.
That'd be fun.
There are people who swear that the thylacine is still around.
Maybe in New Guinea. That's the newest one. Maybe in New Guinea, not on Tasmania.
Okay.
Maybe in New Guinea. Okay. And also, originally when I pitched this idea to Carolyn, the question was, wait, you mean alien big cats like The Cat from Outer Space, the Disney film?
Yes. Love that movie.
I suggest everybody go watch it. It's a film. It's a film.
I would say it's a good movie.
My name is Zunar J5/9 Doric 47.
Get me the Pentagon. Red priority.
You're a cat.
He's the cat from outer space.
In the way that an old movie is a good movie, because it is just so silly that nobody could have pitched this idea today. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
10 out of 10 recommend. Go watch. And you will see also just a beautiful Abyssinian cat is the main character, named Jake.
He's from outer space.
I love Jake. Yeah.
Anyway, as far as alien big cats in Great Britain, though, we're closing the book on that. So, anyway, Carolyn, thank you for coming on.
Yes,
again
thank you
with
so
us.
much.
Of course.
We'll have you back on for the thylacine, and we'll see if I remember that you have been on twice already at this point.
Keep bringing me like cryptid topics, because I mean, one of like life, calling it a dream is a bit out there, but like I would love to get paid by like a Bigfoot finding organization to be like, yeah, go find Bigfoot.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna put up a series of camera traps. Can I publish the data I get from all those camera traps and other things I would be doing as I find Bigfoot?
Yeah.
I'm using air quotes since this is an audio medium. Because you would find evidence. Animals, people are everywhere. And people will say they've seen things, and citizen science is real, and it is incredibly useful when we're talking about wildlife sightings. So I do believe people have seen things. They've seen something.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's exactly what they think they've seen.
Yeah.
But it's still worth investigating. So.
Yeah. We also got to thank you because you are also a Monster Squadron patron producer.
Yes.
And
join the Patreon and the Discord, and you too could someday be a guest person.
Yeah, because you're also one of our moderators on Discord. And
you hooked us up with.
That's not known, Garth.
Oh, well,
that's quiet.
Oh well, you can cut that out. Luckily, this isn't live.
We'll just bleep it.
And also you bleep. What? That's not known, Garth.
She's done what?
Our the other Monster Squadron producers, and I'll list you in here as well, just for completion. We got Travis Alexander, by Barbarian, Rachel Krieger, Tom Dahl, Justin Duckham, Kelly Flynn, Gunnar Franks, Carla Harrington, Havelock, New Jared, Ken with 2 N's, TJ Levenhagen, Alicia Overton, Jordan Ramey, Blue Roan, and Tatum. Also, shout out to the Discord. That's where we got our Garth Sponiker this week. That came again from Ken with an assist from Luarian. Am I saying that right? Let me know on the Discord.
I think it's Lorian.
I always said Lorian in my head, but yeah. Let us know.
That's how.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
And so come join us on the Discord tomorrow night. No, when we're recording this tomorrow night.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Yeah, but not when this comes out. But we're recording this.
Oh, yeah.
Tomorrow night we're hanging out on the Discord of the Monster Squadron.
When you hear this, it will have been too late anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, it will have happened.
Unless you have a backwards carousel of time.
And that's definitely what you want to use it for if you do.
And we did get some mail, but we don't have really time to talk. We'll record something later and plug it in. I think that's all the things. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you, Carolyn.
Anything
Thank you
else?
so much for coming
Yep.
on. That was a
Yeah.
really
Of course.
great
Thank you guys for having
conversation.
me again.
Yeah, anytime. And until next time, not next time you're here, but next time in general,
Yeah.
the only thing that's haunted
Is you.
Nice.
Laughing at you.
Say goodbye.
Walt Disney Productions, The Cat from Outer Space.
I'm serious.
The Least Haunted podcast is recorded before a dead studio audience and is a presentation of Sequoidea Productions, LLC.